Hi, you're watching a brand new version of Open Bar. And I'm Mike Morales here on Tequila Aficionado in San Antonio. That young lady out there is.
I'm Barbara Sweetman. I'm Vice President of Caballeros. We're importers of Scorpion Mezcal, Escorpion Mezcal, and Sierra Norte Oaxacan whiskey.
Woohoo! Yes, I'm so glad to have you on. And I want to tell everybody that for those of you who have never had Scorpion or who have had Scorpion, chances are this lady has been the one to serve it to you in a restaurant, in a bar, at a show. She was. I told Barbara off camera, you're actually the you handed me my first sample of Scorpion, and it had been on the market, for several years at that point, but I'd never had it. And you were really nice enough to serve it to me, and I think I forget which añejo it was, because you kind of asked me what my preferences were, and you handed me this lovely añejo, and I thought, wow, it doesn't need the Scorpion in the bottle. You
Well, that
explain.
would have
Go
that
ahead.
would I probably would have started you out with a silver, gone to the reposado, then the 1 year añejo, and then we had 5 and 7 year añejos.
Well,
That's the 5 year añejo.
yes,
But,
yes, and
but the 7 year añejo we've sold out of. So,
that five
everyone,
year is stellar. It's
yeah.
stunning, and the thing was, I remember, if you recall, the Spirits of Mexico, the 1 year when it was attached to nightclub and bar in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And that, whatever year that was, I forget what year it was, is when you and I met. And Doug was actually speaking. He was one of the speakers
Oh, that's
of
right.
of Scorpion. And while he was speaking, I decided to go to some of the tables because they had a limited small tables of Bacanora and Sotol and Mezcal. And I thought, well, I'll just go to Barbara because she's standing there. And you and I had never met. We had heard maybe of each other,
Yes.
but yeah, you started me really at you. It was like a really nice flight, and it was nice not to have to stand in line because anybody who's been in a nightclub and bar knows that it's a zoo. It's everything from smoke machines to pole dancers, and it's a zoo. So that little section that year was really kind of nice, for anybody who had never been to a Spirits of Mexico, and so you were the first one to serve me my first taste of Scorpion. It was kind of cool.
Great.
I loved it.
Yeah. Well, the 5 year. This is interesting because it's a blend. It's 70% Espadin and 30% Barril. So one thing that I always thought was fabulous with mezcal is not only is there over 30 varieties of agave you can make mezcal with, when you add in the blending, it's like as intricate as wine, if not more, with the type, how many flavors that you can get. It's just an endless amount of flavors. So that's what makes mezcal so exciting and so unique and unusual as well. So
Well,
it's a huge category, even though nobody knows about it.
well, you were a big part. You and Doug French are a big part of. As I mentioned on one of my other questions, apart from Del Maguey, you guys are also the pillar on which the mezcal industry has been built, because you're both, been in existence for 20 years. You've been with Doug for about 16 of those years. Tell me how you guys met, because I know you come from a textile background.
Yes, I had an import-export company in San Diego, and I imported silk and metallic yarn and thread. We sold to the needlework, the textile industry, that whole area. Doug was also involved in textiles. He had a mill in Redwood City, just south of San Francisco, and he imported raw cotton from Oaxaca. His mother lived in Oaxaca for 45 years, and she
Really?
had
What did she do? Was she a school teacher or?
no. She actually was just moved there, and she was the U.S. consulate for the state of Oaxaca,
Oh,
and then she started a business with basically helping women. She hired women, and she had them weaving and dyeing the cotton, and and then they shipped. Doug and his mother had a business. She shipped the raw cotton up to Doug. He'd weave it, and he'd make textiles, placemats, bedspreads, curtains. They sold them to hotels and places all around the world. So Doug and I met through at trade shows through the textile industry.
And I know off camera you were telling me a story about you and Doug combined a thread,
Yeah.
or a weave.
We took my metallic thread, which you can use on a sewing machine, and we had like 20 different colors. So we took my metallics and his Oaxacan cotton, spun it together, and made a yarn. We called it Sweetman French. So Barbara Sweetman and Doug French. It did get into Women's Wear Daily, a little news flash, but then nothing happened with it. But that was interesting. And
what happened? I know for those of you who have probably read Doug's story on Tequila Aficionado, but I wanted to hear it from Barbara. What happened? How did the conversion go from textiles to mezcal? Where did that brainchild happen for him and for you?
Well, with Doug, NAFTA had a lot to do with ruining businesses in Mexico. He'd moved to Mexico and tried to continue the textile business, and I'm not sure exactly how it ruined it. He can tell you that in more detail.
Yeah, he kind of mentioned it a little bit in his story.
And then he got involved with a mezcal and tried to sell it in California, and then he ended up moving to Oaxaca and he started making his own. And then we lost, and that was he started making his own mezcal starting in 1995, 1996. And we had lost touch by that time, and around sometime early 2002, I'd actually been involved I was actually the director of the Internet Advertising Bureau.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, psychology after
wow.
text. So I was kind of, it was, the Internet Advertising Bureau was how you advertise on the Internet, like what size the ad should be, all this stuff. So I was the director, and I was kind of getting a little burnout with that. And so I got in touch with Doug over the Internet, and he goes, sorry, there's some construction next door.
That's okay.
I got in touch with Doug, and he goes, oh, Barbara, let's see, I got divorced, I moved down to Oaxaca, and I'm making mezcal now. So I go, well, I'm kind of looking for something else to do. Why don't I help you with that? So,
and you've been hooked ever since.
So stepped right in.
And you've been with him for how long now? Part of the Scorpion family?
Since 2002.
Oh, wow. Okay, so 16, 17 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we're not done yet, so.
No, oh heck no. And that, it's just amazing to me how far the mezcal industry has come, because until I had actually read Doug's story, I was not aware how long he had been involved in mezcal. Because I know you mentioned that in one of our questions off camera that Doug had acquired some promotional monies from the government to promote mezcal, and that I think is when I first started hearing about Scorpion. Mm-hmm. But even prior to that, the brand was alive, and so it's interesting for me to see, that now after 20 years, you guys are an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
How many states are you in? How many states can we find Scorpion in?
It goes up and down.
Yeah.
It's been, let's see, we're probably in about 35 states. We were in Hawaii, and then our distributor there decided to get out of the liquor business and stay in food business. So, I mean, after all this work I'd done in Hawaii, so things like that happen. Also, distributors buy each other all the time, and you can get dropped when they buy. So there's, we're probably in 30 states. We've exported to 14 countries. And again, not every country reorders. I shipped stuff to Lebanon and Turkey.
Wow!
That was pretty amazing. That was about 2009.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Who knew that they had that they had a taste for mezcal? What surprises you about the industry now? you've like I say, you and the other brand have been pillars on which the whole industry has been built on. I will say that. How, the changes that you've seen in the United States as far as the acceptance of mezcal, what surprises you the most about it?
Well, I guess it shouldn't be I shouldn't be surprised, but I do see a lot of the mezcal going the same routes as tequila. I hope not, but just like with tequila, there's just a small amount of factories, and there's like 5,000-6,000 brands. I don't know the exact numbers, but now I see everybody and their dog going down to Oaxaca with their idea for their brand, and trying to get the little mezcaleros to make it for them, and the same way that went on with tequila. So it's not surprising, but I'm seeing that.
And really, I know we talked about it during your Women in Mezcal series, that the sustainability issue with mezcal and with the agave is really a big factor, a big concern for you, and I would say for a lot of the pioneering brands that of mezcal, and there are a handful.
Yeah.
There aren't that many.
Yeah, it is a concern. The kitty cat's starting to.
I'm gonna say hi to her. Give her a belly rub for me. Oh, look. I love cats. We have 4 cats here.
Off the keyboard.
Yeah, I know. They love keyboards.
So, as I said earlier, too, it is a concern. The agaves being taken out of the wild. That's not sustainable. People need to grow in nurseries. They need to also grow from seed versus clones. They need to protect the DNA of the original agaves, and they have to stop. I don't know how you stop people taking them out of the wild, but there is a market in there, a black market in there, and it's done. And in fact, this wasn't one of the last times I was in Oaxaca. I went with Doug out to our tobola fields. Mm-hmm. These kids had gone out there. They pulled up all the tobolas, and the tobolas aren't that big. They pulled them all up looking for agave worms. Now the espadín are huge, so those are impossible to pull up.
Yeah.
But they just tip them over and kill the tobolas, and the tobolas still take as long to grow as they can take, 10, 15, 20, 25 years to grow, just like an espadín. So, that's.
It makes you just want to take a face palm, just do that and shake your head. What?
So the sustainability with that, and for deforestation, when they use the wood for the pit burning, they're supposed to replant, they don't. So a lot of this, there's not a lot of wood in Oaxaca, period, and so that's a concern.
When you first started, when you got on board, how much did you know about mezcal? What did you do to prepare to educate? I mean, this must have been a huge learning curve for you, because. Well,
I grew up in San Diego, so I was familiar with tequila and mezcal, but I did not know the differences. The true differences. Just what I've learned since then is this.
Yeah, it's enormous now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and still learning. I'd imagine. It's still.
In fact, I thought I knew everything about mezcal, and Doug and I, we were putting on the Master Mezcalier certification program for several years. We haven't done it for about 2 years now because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And this is to educate people and to give them actually certified training about mezcal. So we did that for years, and there was 4 levels. The first level was basic Mezcal 101, what is it, the laws, this and that. The second level was using it in mixology. The third level, you had to go down to Oaxaca, and it was cooking with it. So we used Susanna Trilling's Seasons of My Heart cooking school. So we spent that whole afternoon everybody making different courses, and then you got to eat at the end.
Oh, cool.
And then the last level was basically in Oaxaca, and it was over several days. It was actually chopping agave in the field, identifying it in the wild, visiting the different distilleries. And I thought I knew. I'd been down there a zillion times, and until I actually had to do that myself and chop some of that stuff. I mean, I thought I knew it all until and the worst ones to chop are the barriles.
Yes.
And the barriles they're called barrel because they're shaped like a barrel.
Like a barrel, yeah.
And they actually use the barriles. They plant them in between property lines for fence instead of
fencing. Yeah, for fencing. Yeah.
They can't afford fence posts, so it makes an impenetrable barrier. Now you take all the leaves off it, and you have to take a machete, and you got to make little chips in it, get all the chips off it. It's like chipping a 2x4. It's hard as a rock.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. It's just, I have so much more respect for Mezcal after going through that class and doing it myself. I mean the amount of work, the bottles are so cheap for all the work and the labor and the years that go into it. So I have so much more appreciation.
Well, I have to say that after Rick Levy and myself did our initial tastings of the mezcal, the Scorpion 4-pack, which it was really our favorite because, and I wanted Rick to do this tasting with me as one of our, we call them TJs, our tequila jockeys, and Rick had he has a huge palate for tequila, but very little experience with mezcal, and so it was nice to be able to go through that 4-pack because it was a learning experience for him too, and he just instantly fell in love. That particular 4-pack, if you all haven't seen it, it comes in a box and it's got 4 different varietals of, oh good, yes, show it. It has 4 different varietals of mezcal in 200 milliliter bottles. It is the greatest starting point for anybody who wants to venture into mezcal. Yes, and your box is so informational. He loved it. He devoured the information. Yes.
So there's 4 different varieties of agave in here. There's and they're in little bottles like this. No scorpions. No, we don't put scorpions in the varietals anymore. So there's a espadín, which is the most common agave.
Right.
A tobola, a barril, and a blue Weber, but grown in Oaxaca.
See, and now let me ask you, because traditionally mezcal is at a much higher alcohol by volume, and those of us who've been exposed to mezcal, well, you have either have had a something over 40 ABV or higher, or something that's been watered down, in the cheap mezcals. When you had Doug's, and I asked him this, I think via email, I asked him, has your mezcal always been at 80 proof, 40 ABV? And he said yes, because traditionally, you get them at higher proofs, 43, 45, in Spanish they call them grados de alcohol, the different grades, the different alcohol by volume. You've had, I'm sure, your share of all kinds of mezcal. What makes, have you found any resistance, first of all, in the fact that all of Scorpion's mezcals are basically at 80 proof?
No, not at all. Not at all.
See, that was the really definitive part for me, was that Doug's version of that 4-pack, every one of those is at like an 80 proof, and they're exquisite, and you can still pull out all the nuances and all the differences, and maybe even more so than you could at a higher level, because I've had mezcals and sotols, other agave spirits, at higher ABVs, and sometimes from the same maker, and they taste like a whole different alcohol. It tastes like a whole different juice. So
I think at a lower alcohol level, you can probably taste the flavors a lot better. Taste the real vegetable flavors coming out.
Up until that point, up until I had Scorpion, I now agree with you. I used to say, Alex and I would, Alex Perez, our founder, and the guy that we'd started sipping off the cuff with, I used to tell him, I said, Alex, what is it about high proof tequilas and tequilas that are below or above 80 proof that I enjoy better? Because tequilas in Mexico sometimes are at 35 to 38
Mhm.
ABV, and the higher proofs like a Herradura 92 or anything at 100, Tapatio 110, they're exquisite. Their flavors come right through, and I for some reason I guess I never thought of mezcal also being that delicious at a regular 80 proof. Have you had mezcals at lower proofs? Do they even exist? Do they exist at 36,
I, I,
38?
I, I've I've had some 37, 38.
How do they taste to you?
Depends on what kind of mezcal it is.
Well, are you still able to pull out the flavors, or do you prefer them at 80 proof? Do you have a preference now?
I really don't have a preference. I really taste the flavor of the spirit, not, you know, I've never tasted them according to proof, so.
Okay. Okay. Now, the really neat thing that you were really nice enough. Go
Oh,
ahead.
but I do have to say, with all the little palenques down in Oaxaca, there's one in every village. I doubt if they even test the proof, okay? So,
Yeah. In fact, there is a testing, but it's all done by eye.
yeah.
It's done by the size of the pearl, I discovered. You were talking off camera about David Suro. You were involved in a panel not too long ago. And David Suro, last time I saw him was last month, in May, actually. He came through San Antonio, and I met him. We're dear friends. He's a good, really good guy. And I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And he brought Emilio Vieira with him, who maintains his mezcal that is under the Siembra Spirits brand, the umbrella. And he showed a technique that I have yet to, I'm writing up that article as we speak, but he showed us how they test for proof using just the bubbles and a bamboo pipe and a jicara.
Yeah, heard about.
Yeah, and that's how they do it. And I'm dumbfounded because they can get the accuracy to within 1 or 2 degrees, but they know by the size of the pearl. I'm dumbfounded. And you're right. The palenqueros in Oaxaca probably, they don't, and the alcohol by volume. A lot of them will just tell you it just tastes better at this level of alcohol. Wow, I learn more and more about the spirit with every time that every other brand that we get here at Tequila Aficionado.
Yeah.
When you what kind of challenges do you see? I know we talked a lot about educating and education. What's the one challenge that you see consistently anywhere you go in every state when you talk to people face to face? What when it comes to mezcal, is it because I know
What's
people.
the difference between tequila and mezcal?
That's it, huh? What do you tell them?
Well, then I start telling them.
Well, okay. So let's just say I don't know anything about either one. What would you say to me?
Well, the first thing I say is tequila is a type of mezcal. Mezcal is not a type of tequila.
Okay.
And then it goes with some of the history, and that mezcal really is the bigger category, and tequila is a subcategory. And it is now they both have their own domination of origin and certification, and it's regionally based, and it is the type of agaves. And there's several other factors, but the main thing is regional, and the varieties of agave.
Do you see? Do you want the denomination of origin to expand to include other states? Because I know that there are many other states that have.
I already know that 90% of your mezcal is made in Oaxaca.
Right.
There are some states that are listed that don't even make mezcal.
Oh, okay. All right.
And some of that was political because Vicente Fox, he had friends or he's from one of those states, and they don't even make it. They wanted to be listed, so
Oh, no kidding. Well,
states, they've probably made agave spirits all over Mexico for centuries.
For centuries. So tell me, you have first of all, I want to thank you for making Oaxacan whiskey available to us on Tequila Aficionado. That was such a treat. I don't know if anybody has seen our reviews on Sierra Norte, but that was totally. Go yeah, show it to us. That was totally unexpected. The one what was it? The white corn whiskey, the white corn varietal was the one that I could taste. I could actually taste the corn, because you those of us who grew up in the States, and you grew up at, you live in a whiskey producing state, you just don't, it's made from corn or rye, but you don't actually ever taste it, because what you taste is the barrel. So to me, it was a real treat to actually taste the root of where it all comes from.
Oaxaca is where corn originated on the whole planet, the Oaxaca Puebla region.
Yes.
And so it probably started as a grass 14,000 years ago, and it got cultivated, slowly over the millennium into what it is today. There's still like maybe 2,000 different varieties of native corn in Oaxaca. A lot of them have gone extinct. This subsistence farmers have quit growing it. GMO corn is coming into Mexico. So Doug has tried to find some of these ancient seed strains. He has a red corn that he's replanted several times. He had started out with one little cob. He planted that, then he harvested that and planted a whole field. So hopefully we'll have a red corn whiskey next year. And
cool.
So right now we have the white corn, and we have a white wax up the top.
Right.
We have a black corn whiskey and a yellow corn whiskey. So they're all made the same, aged the same, everything exactly the same. It's 85% corn, 15% malted barley. They each have a totally unique flavor because of the corn. And as you said with the white, that you actually tasted the corn flavor. Now, I think the yellow, in my opinion, is the most popcorny, or as my husband calls it, corn forward.
Corn forward, yeah.
The white, I think, is probably the most neutral, and the black is the most robust. But
Yes.
they all three have a totally distinct flavor from the corn. And Doug's going, and I'm slowly getting around to answer your question. Doug's going, I've been making mezcal for over 20 years. Why didn't I think of whiskey 20 years ago? Everybody knows what that is. So that's the question. Everybody knows what whiskey is.
But
People still don't know what mezcal is.
But it's great though. It's now there are a few other brands who are beginning to jump on that bandwagon. But again, you guys,
Well,
I have to say, Doug and Scorpion.
We've been first, and we've been pioneers.
Yes.
We're also, and Doug is, I have to say, he's really perfected barrel aging. Now we've been, we also helped introduce categories for mezcal, silver, reposado, and añejo. Well, most of your mezcals that you see are only silvers.
Right.
But when you barrel age them, and Doug just has perfected that just beautifully. They're beautifully done. When you barrel age, it's a very expensive process. It's money sitting in a barrel.
Yeah.
So most of these poor little, Palenques, they can't afford to have something sitting in a barrel like that.
No.
They can't afford that. And so they, a lot of times you buy mezcal in little plastic jugs.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but they don't store it, they don't age it. So it's not typical, but they started aging it like with like tequila. They started aging tequila and mezcal. They probably shipped sherry over from Spain, and they probably used original sherry barrels at first, I would say, to store it.
Probably so. I know the ones that we've had sent here to Tequila Aficionado on a consistent basis, the reposados aren't aged very long at all. Maybe 3 months max, and then they're, just enough to make it a different color. What I love about the mezcal period is that no matter what you do to it, and no matter how you serve it, or what you serve it in, it just adds that extra layer of flavor, and yet more complexity. Just another layer of complexity, but you don't have to fight to look for the actual plant, the whatever plant that they're using to make mezcal. I tell Rick all the time, and anyone else who tastes mezcal with me, is that I could serve it in your shoe, and you would still be able to tell me what plant it came from and all that, because it's a lovely spirit, and again, I know that the lower ABVs are probably not as popular, but they should be, because I think Doug has perfected the 80 proof version. Do you know what caused him to age his mezcal in French oak? Why did he pick French oak?
Because we were buying bottles from France, from Sabre Glass, French bottles,
Oh.
and to fill an entire container of French bottles, we'll have them for the rest of our lives. So,
So there it is.
yeah, so it helps fill up the container too.
Oh, so it was just practical.
Yeah, and also his family owns an apartment in Paris, so they go to France, and his brother is a real big wine freak, and so they've gone to the vineyards and. You know.
Okay, well, you've been with us on Open Bar now for about half an hour, but if you had one thing to say to people about Scorpion, about Caballeros and Scorpion and or Sierra Norte, what would it be? What would you tell a newbie who's watching this show and go, okay, here's the one thing I want you to know about us, about our brands.
It's delicious.
That's it.
I just want to say one quick little thing. I never like brown spirits. I typically do not like whiskey. I don't like.
You don't like rum either?
A little, but
Okay.
but I'm not a real. I've never been a big brown spirits.
Okay.
However, with Doug's the Reposado Añejo, and especially the 5 and 7 year Añejo, and we have a Tobla Añejo too, which is fabulous.
I know.
3.5 year Tobla. I love them, and I will sip them, and I'll drink that before I drink the silvers.
Wow.
So that's changed me around totally. So,
Well, excellent.
and delicious.
It's delicious. See, well, there you go. That you have been with us on Open Bar with Barbara Sweetman, who is the one of the two heads, one of the two leaders of Scorpion Mezcal, Caballeros Inc., which is the importer, and Scorpion, and now Sierra Norte. Barbara, thank you so much for being with us here at Tequila Aficionado on Open Bar, and for taking time out of because you're everywhere. You know, it's almost like you. How many miles a year do you put in?
Well, I try. We all have to work as hard as we can.
Wow. Well, again, as far as we're concerned here, and I think the story is finally getting out. Like I said earlier, you're a 20-year overnight success.
Yep.
So congratulations for that.
Nice talking to you, Mike.
It was nice to. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and I know that you're busy, but. Thanks for being with us on Open Bar. You've been watching Open Bar with Barbara Sweetman of Scorpion Mezcal and Sierra Norte whiskeys. I'm sorry. And maybe one day tequila, maybe not. Who cares? And you've been watching me. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio on Tequila Aficionado. Thanks for being with us. Barbara, thank you so much. I so